So now we are back to more of a mainline system. So in our starting position, we look at Nd2, so-called Tarrasch French. And here there's a very interesting line that leads to very lively play, and that's bishop e7. So black is kind of waiting for white to make a commitment, because after knight gf3, we play knight f6, and now we are saying that kind of the knights, they are standing on each other's feet. So this typical structure after e5 is not so easy to play for white. Because ideally, I mean, white likes the f-pawn on f4 and also not have the knights covering each other, but, you know, more, they can cover more ground when they are not in each other's way. Plus, development is a bit difficult. Knight on d2 still in the way of bishop c1. But anyways, still a serious line from white's perspective also. And here, of course, knight c6 is the main move. I just want to put out as an idea, it's also possible to play b6 here and just exchange the bad French bishop on a6. So anyone who likes that, I would endorse this as well. But kind of more ambitious is knight c6, castles, and here g5 is quite a cool idea. And it doesn't have the idea that it has. So even if it was our move, we wouldn't play g4 yet. Well, I will just make a waiting move to illustrate this a3. Even here we won't do it, because we don't want to allow this queen g4 and there's suddenly queen g7, which disrupts our coordination on the king side. But what we're actually doing with g5 is we make the natural development for white impossible. Because if black played something else, it would be very natural to play rook e1, then knight f1, knight g3, bring the knight out like this, free the bishop. But now rook e1 isn't possible because after g4 the knight has nowhere to go. It's just lost. So this g5 is really irritating for white. So h3 is kind of the worst move one can play because of the h5, the possibility of g4 is renewed, but now black would also be opening up at least one file on the king side, and the king doesn't have to castle. He can of course go the queen side. So h3 makes very little sense. So if white plays queen e2, that's interesting move. Still not really getting out, but we will not play g4. We further our development. Queen e3 makes some sense. So now we can play g4 because g4 will not be hanging. And we get like a very, very tense position where kind of the white pieces are not where they want to be. Black can castle queenside, and yeah, position just remains very tense. For black, the idea is to, after castling, we could bring the d8 rook to e8 to kind of prepare f5 and have the rook cover e6 if there's an exchange on f6. Or the rook could go to g8, and then we would have to remove the bishop from e7, say to f8, h6, and bring the knight to f5. So lots of things going on, and also white finds it difficult to kind of arrange his pieces. So let's go back. So popular way for white to play is to release the tension here, go dc5. But this entails actually giving up all of a sudden a whole pawn. But there's a point, so people who are really deeply prepared, they would know they can play knight g5 here. And now I have a question for you. What would you do as black?
Okay, first thing to look at is can I take the knight g5 with the queen? If they do that, they have some sort of discovery in the queen stuff. For example, knight e4 is a possibility, attack the queen twice, and also bishop c5 is hanging.
Exactly. So this is what would be happening until bishop g5.
That'd be annoying.
Yes, indeed, because white is going to win the piece back.
Yeah, so probably not desirable to do that.
No. Actually, the line kind of continues. It's very forcing.
Okay.
So here gf is not possible because then rook g8. So it kind of goes to a position like this where white has the two bishops and therefore some advantage. So that's not desirable.
So yeah, with that in mind, we can't do that. Is there anything we can do in the meantime? Is there any benefit for black since that we have open lines? Maybe bishop d6 back, and then prepare for this. Well, maybe this long f4. So maybe bishop b6 back to be able to save the bishop from any sort of attacks.
Yes, bishop b6 is one good move. Of course, then there's a real threat taking the knight on g5.
Yeah.
But I have like a general rule in such situations when we are still in the opening.
Okay.
Like to me, we should not forget that the goal of the opening is to, well, of course, fight for the center, but mainly develop our pieces.
Oh.
So, you know, when I have no clear orientation, you know, what my next move should achieve, or there's nothing to react to,
Yeah.
like my baseline is to always further development.
Yeah.
And that would make me very much consider bishop d7 here.
Oh, okay.
Because also my king needs to go to the queen side, so bishop d7 is a necessary move. It furthers my development, and it's just good here actually.
I see.
And if white plays queen h5, we go h6. Now it needs to cover g5, for example, with knight b3, we go bishop d6, we are happy. Next we can go like queen c7, then castle, and we have a very nice position. Because white has given up the center and not so clear what white is playing for here.
What if they go f4 here?
Then we have also queen b6 with tempo.
Oh, queen b6.
Give a check. Yes, and then we castle, because now after fe we can just take on g5 with tempo.
I see. That way, okay.
Yeah, that's a nice one. And then suddenly everything will collapse here, yeah. So there are some alternatives here for white. For example, bishop d3. Here we go c5. dc5, knight f6. So whenever white plays e5, then the knight is going d7 and takes back on c5. So here a5 is kind of turns out to be a very good move because both sides are waiting, and now this knight goes out to a6. We of course don't want to put it on d7 because the other knight needs that square, and like c6 is possible, but we actually want to take back on c5, so that's why, you know, a5 was kind of to just prepare knight a6. So now more waiting doesn't have a point for white because anyways c5 is gonna fall, so e5 made sense. Knight d7. Here there are some moves. For example, c4, knight takes c5, bishop c2, preserving the bishop, and here b6 is good. So the bishop can come to a6, where it will be kind of annoying. And also going to b7 makes sense. Yeah, bishop would recapture then on d5, and those are good positions for black. Everything is out. Rook will come to c8, and we can at any point also play queen c7. Like we just have a naturally developed position. So if white doesn't go c4, but more restrained c3, then an important motive to know here is to play b5. Because, yeah, we like to play on the queen side in these positions, and here b5 cannot be captured because there is always bishop a6. And again, this issues with the rook on f1. And a nice moment here is that after knight d4, it's actually we're following a game of Wesley So, queen c7 attacking on e5, kind of winning a tempo, and we go b4 and already got our play going. So I think this is also quite satisfactory for black, and there's a last move we should look at. Here as white going e5, and just kind of saying, okay, you've put your bishop on e7, now where's your knight from g8 going? So c5, here there are two moves. One is queen g4, need to defend on g7, so we go king f8. Looks a bit odd, but in a close position we do not necessarily need to worry about the king there, and we will see how black develops on the king side. So dc5, knight c6, queen g3 covering e5, and now we are kind of making some headway here. Knight b3, h4. It's kind of typical. When the queen is out early, there are always ways to disturb her. Now white needs to keep a connection to the e5 pawn, therefore queen e3. Now the knight is coming from this side. And basically, black has found some way to reasonably develop on the king side. And here the position is again quite tense. So I think that in general, black needs to fight for the initiative here because he has this iffy king on f8, and if white were to develop perfectly, you know, bishop d3, castle, bishop d2, put the rook on e1, he will stabilize and not only start to push black back because he can take on f5, but it's also still a pawn up. But it's not so easy. Black will strike first. So after bishop d3, like I said, we need to look for ways to fight for the initiative, and here it's going g5. So it takes his force, takes, queen e5. is a check, so bishop e2 forced, rook g8, and suddenly there's a problem on g2. So black has taken over. That means bishop d3 is no good. If white plays the more restrained bishop e2, we can just prepare g5 at rook g8, and I think black has good play. So this kind of all a sample line, because after queen g4, king f8, we get a very unorthodox position, but like this idea with h5 developing the knight through h6, that then becomes very typical. So more orthodox way to play for white would be with c3, keep your center intact. And here, if we play seemingly natural moves, knight c6, bishop d3. Here knight takes d4 is not such a good idea, like in an earlier line there's queen g4 and g7 folds, but developing with knight h6. Here knight df3 leads to a good position for white. Now the other knight can go to e2, and white is able to take this knight at any point with the c1 bishop, so I don't like this. So here we need to act more decisively as black, and that's by immediately attacking the pawn on d4. So here knight f3 makes sense because white really wants to untangle the knights in this way, not put the other knight on f3, after which again he would have to react and put this knight then on the bad b3 square. So knight df3 is logical, and now we solve our development problems in the following way. We go bishop b4 check, which vacates the e7 square potentially for the g8 knight. And basically white's moves were kind of the most obvious ones. And black is okay in this type of position because the pawn is not on f4. So that means that with f7, f6 we successfully undermine white's pawn chain in the center, and then we can either go knight h6, knight f7, put pressure on e5, or develop with knight e7, and yeah, then castle, and we have quite a decent position.
And another line I've played in the game was with the g5 line after the castle. That one. So yeah, g5. I played a couple games where white played g4 here.
Wow.
And g4, f5, h3, and try to do king g2, rook h1 ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting. It's an interesting idea.
So I've had this in a couple of games. This black.
So I have doubts.
Oh yeah.
But let's see.
Yeah. Saying that you're not developed enough in kingside, I'll just take your h file. So you can't take g4.
Okay, for starters, I'm taking this, and I go queen b6.
Okay, the pretty impression. This one was just king g2, just all for the h file.
But d4 is hanging.
Well, maybe a gambit. You know, this case will do like CD. Yeah, this one. This don't take that back. Just like do rook h1. Saying that I want to just penetrate in the h file. So what about this one?
I don't believe it. So now, of course, I have some issue finishing my development, but I have a clear goal. I want to play bishop d7 and castle, so I will go knight f8 here, just to achieve that. Okay. Then bishop d7 next, and I would be ready to castle.
I see. There's nothing like, for example, queen h5 to help white to attack g5, for example.
Yeah, it's a good move. Let's see.
So now bishop g7, I'm taking g5.
Yeah, I'm wondering what's going on here. So let's say I go here.
Let's take on g5.
You take it. I very much want to play this one.
Okay, f7 is no problem.
Yeah, my hope is that you don't have a good way to untangle here.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, so there's no resolution to this one. It's hard to believe that. So, yikes. No g.
Difficult.
Yeah, g5.
g5, I can take on f7 and then on g5. I don't mind this.
Okay, this is no problem for black in this case. So yeah, one more thought is that instead of sacking the d pawn, when you go back to like knight c6, instead of sacking the d pawn, let's say if they go knight to b, oh no, they can't go knight b3. Like
there's c4.
Like taking c5 here is white. Taking c5 here is white.
Yeah.
Is there like a more fighting?
So here I'm not sure which way I go. Because even this one is interesting to quickly take on e5. Yeah, but okay, it's maybe a bit too much. So let's say I go knight c5, then you go here.
G2, yeah. Bishop d7. Is it too quick?
Yeah, there's some before move
Oh, that's true.
that disturbs me. So maybe I need to be so clever.
Yeah.
Oh, I can also just take here. Because now I'm putting pressure on e5.
There's no queen e2 things?
Yeah, there is. So no, I somehow feel like I should do my clever queen c7, because this pawn is really the most important one.
Yeah. No, let's say white says, okay, pawn for pawn, they go, for example, knight b3, saying that I want to take g5.
Oh, but you're gonna get mated on h2.
Oh, I forgot that one. So scratch that idea. So I can't allow that one. So there's no defense of the e5 pawn this way. But in that case, is there any hope for king g2 here? Probably not, because of the e5 and bishop g2.
Yeah, now things are hanging on g4 and 23.
Oh, yeah.
That's
no
too
time.
much.
No time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that does it. I thought there was something clever here, but there's none.
Hey, check this video out to make sure that you get more important information to bring your chess to the next level.